This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! He makes it a goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Motor City Sports Rant. I'm talking to Jason Jarvie on the telephone. You know what we're going to talk about. Everybody was excited when we all knew that the Detroit Lions were going to open the season versus the New York Jets. They had a rookie quarterback. You had an assumption. Look, everybody said you can kind of dismiss what you saw in the preseason. The Lions were going to come out and at least be better than the New York Jets. And when everybody saw the first play of the game, we were all excited. Okay, you know what? Sam Darnold's not going to walk into Ford Field and become a star. And then what happened over the course of the next 3 hours was probably the most embarrassed any Lions fan has ever been watching the Detroit Lions. It was embarrassing from start to finish. Right after that, pick six for the Detroit Lions. Everybody's talking about it. Detroit is on fire. Not because of the fact that Sam Darnold ran all over them, not because of the fact that, every aspect of the Detroit Lions failed. Detroit Lions fans are upset and are on fire because that team quit, and everybody saw it. It was on film. Let me welcome in Jason Jarvie. What up, sir?
Not much. How about you? Thanks for getting my morning off by just making me upset.
Everybody's upset, Jason. We had over 1,000 tweets sent to us when I asked a simple question, what two words described that contest? It was embarrassing, man, from start to finish. I had never seen, and really, I didn't think that the Lions were going to dominate the Jets, and I had thought maybe be in the neighborhood of 28-18 in the Lions' favor, but what we saw was a complete collapse in all phases of an NFL football game, and it was shocking for the nation to see. Jason, it was so bad, ESPN said, look, you know what, we're just going to go to the Raiders. Forget this. 6 minutes left. We're going to bump the Lions to ESPN2. They didn't even want to show it anymore. It was bad all around. There was really nothing to take away that was good. I want to ask you, do you think the Lions quit on Matt Patricia, or is this really a talent deficiency across the board?
I'm not sure if they quit, but I think there's definitely a point in that game where it was just stuff kept piling on, and as much as I hate to just admit it, they just need to get to the next game because there's no saving that game. There was so much hope after that first play, and I think if you want to take one thing away, I do think Quandre Diggs, he definitely came out to play, and he's going to be a bright spot on this defense for a little bit, but yeah, I mean, just all phases of the team. The offense couldn't get it going. They couldn't figure it out. The defense, I wouldn't say Sam Darnold shredded them because he didn't have he didn't rack up yards, but then again, he also didn't really have to do a bunch at the end of the game because they had such a high lead and they could just run all over the defense. So, and then you had the special teams breakdown. Andre Roberts, a former Lion that runs back the touchdown, and it was just not good. And I'm not going to blame Matt Stafford for all of those interceptions, but there was at least one that was clearly an awful read, and it's just it was very disappointing.
It was disappointing on all fronts, Jason. When you look at it, you say, okay, Sam Darnold's first play is a pick six. The crowd is excited. Then the next drive, you see some efficiency. You don't see pressure. You don't see the Detroit Lions capitalize on the momentum. And obviously, when you saw the Jets rolling, Matt Stafford looked bad. That was, I think, one of the most disheartening things for me is Matthew Stafford's supposed to be a guy that no matter what, at this point in time in his career, you can count on him. You can count on Matthew Stafford to be there. And when he has a subpar game, that's really tough. That makes it hard to swallow because this is the leader. And he came out after the game and said, it's on me. But in the end, when you looked at it, every facet failed. The offensive line failed. The running game was terrible. And here's the thing, Jason, I just don't get it. When I looked at that performance, I felt like, okay, the Detroit Lions were poorly coached from start to finish. The coaching staff did not put the players in the best position to win. I mean, you're at the goal line, right? And you have a second down, third down play, and you would say, okay, it's a red zone situation. We know what's going to happen. LeGarrette Blount's going to pop in there. No, they hand the ball off to Theo Riddick, and everybody's sitting there scratching their head. They're going, what is going on here? Why would you bring in LeGarrette Blount when you're in the red zone and you don't utilize him? And then what started happening was it was a complete disaster. What started happening was everybody started going down. You had Darius Slay kind of get nicked up. LeGarrette Blount got nicked up. It was something so shocking that I just didn't see where once the floodgates opened, everything went south. It was just poorly coached on every level.
I have to say, and I'm pretty sure most people, LeGarrette Blount isn't your lead running back. Your lead running back should either be putting out Kerryon Johnson or, for better or worse, put in Theo Riddick or Amir Abdullah. LeGarrette Blount isn't your first down and your second down running backs. LeGarrette Blount is the guy that you bring in when you're in the red zone, when you're close to scoring. You don't bring him in when you're down at the 15 on your own 15-yard line. And first down, teams know you're going to run, so they're going to stack up against that. You're putting him in a bad position. And like you said, when you have Theo Riddick down there at the goal line, I mean, he was able to, God bless his little heart, he was able to do a little bit, but the guy's not a bruiser. He's not going to power and muscle you in a goal line touchdown.
People are asking, Jason, and people want to know, what happened in this game? Why did the Detroit Lions lose this game in this fashion?
I feel like there's so many different answers to that, and I'm not really sure if there's one answer, but it's just got to be they weren't prepared enough. And you would think that they would be because Matt Patricia we've been sold that he's this, rocket scientist and that he's so smart and he's going to get these guys up to play. But we saw it in the preseason that, there just something wasn't clicking. And the only hope that we can have is that we have all the starters now together. It's not preseason where we're getting a mishmash of starters and backup players, and that hopefully in the first couple of weeks it might be a little rough going, but that they start to gel and they can start to figure out what kind of team they actually are. Because if not, I was thinking about this and I was thinking that this is the worst it's going to be for the Lions, but it's not. See, this is the worst it can be. And if that's what it's going to be the entire season, this season is going to be brutal.
Yeah, Jason, that's the thing is that, is it something where, is it the players revolting against the coach? Is it something where, they're upset because of the fact that maybe the organization hasn't shown love to Golden Tate, second round picks? The one aspect that kind of before the game started that people kind of looked at and said was, holy cow, you had second-round picks like Amir Abdullah, Tease Tabor, Ashawn Robinson, and guess what? They're not on the field. It's kind of like an indicative notion of, why did you draft these guys if they're not going to be on the field? I don't understand that kind of thinking where you go, okay, second-round pick like Ashawn Robinson has become devalued and he's not on the field, and then you go, okay, Darius Slay gets bumped. You expect Tease Tabor to be in there, but they didn't. They went to Agnew, and I was shocked because I tweeted out and said, okay, next man up, Tease Tabor, and it wasn't Tease Tabor. I don't understand why certain situations happen with the Detroit Lions, and the way that they utilize their talent is really embarrassing.
Yeah, it's flummoxing. There's not enough words for me to describe what this Lions team did to me last night. And it's just, they have to get better. I have to believe that they're going to get better. Stafford just did not look right. He didn't look like he was reading the defenses. It didn't look like the receivers were on the right page. You had Golden Tate, Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones dropping balls that they probably shouldn't have dropped. I mean, Marvin Jones, there was one, like a 50-50 ball that Stafford threw in the end zone that just went through Marvin Jones's hands. And that's a touchdown right there, 50% of the time, which I think last year you saw Marvin Jones get a lot of those balls, but he just, I don't know. I got to say that it's going to average out. It's not going to be as bad the entire season. I can't believe that.
Right. And now, though, the Detroit Lions haven't won in San Francisco, I think, since the 70s. And so that's what's really frustrating is that you look at that schedule and you go, okay, you play San Francisco on the road, you come back home Sunday night versus the Patriots, then you got, tougher opponents like Green Bay at home, and you just go, are you serious right now? This could seriously be an 0-5 start. And you're going to be exposed nationally. That's the part that's really embarrassing is that everybody was so excited. Jason, everybody kind of wanted to plan their day around Monday Night Football. They get excited for the start of the season. And for that performance to be shown to the nation, not just to Detroit fans. I mean, some people would even say, look, it can be expected. But for that to be shown to the entire nation to where they're at. You had, Stool Presidente. You have Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports going, you know what's really underrated? And he put this in a tweet. He goes, what's underrated and underreported is actually how crappy the Detroit Lions organization is. And you had everybody watching that because everybody gets excited for Monday Night Football. And obviously people wanted to see Sam Darnold, but everybody got a chance to see Matt Patricia, the new look Detroit Lions. And the part that I guess stings the most is we all thought once he was brought on, once Matt Patricia was hired, that he would take this team forward. And you may have to take 2 steps backwards, but everybody is also saying, look, Jim Caldwell had this team at 9-7 and was maybe a couple plays away from the playoffs. If you had continued with him, you know what? The thoughts can start to creep in. Will Detroit Lions fans regret that Jim Caldwell is not the coach in the next 6 weeks?
No, they won't. They shouldn't. We knew when we called it. Jim Caldwell had to be gone from this team. He wasn't the guy to take them to a Super Bowl. And, Matt Patricia, you want to hope he's the guy. But if he's not, I'm okay with that because I know that Jim Caldwell wasn't the guy either. Okay, now we have to talk about it because it came across our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Let's just say it does get really bad. Let's say it's a 4-12 season and we get maybe 2 or 3 more performances like this on national television where the Lions look inept. Would you make a case if the season is that bad and you don't see progression and you get a sign that the team has quit? Would you maybe pull the plug on Matt Patricia after 1 year? Would you be willing to do it? I wouldn't. If you're pulling the plug on Matt Patricia, you have to pull the plug on Bob Quinn too. I think you can't pull the plug on one because those guys are linked now. That if it gets awful and the plug is going to be pulled, you got to pull the plug on both of those guys. They're both at fault because Bob Quinn's been here longer. He's been the guy who's been putting the players on this team. You can't solely put it all on Matt Patricia. I think some people might make that argument and say, you know what? Yeah, send Bob Quinn with him because already half of his first class, 2016, I think, is already gone. People are not being utilized. You see players now. Now you have a new crop of players that we can look at and go, well, wouldn't TJ Watt look a lot better in this system than Jared Davis? Wouldn't other players look a little bit better than what the Lions have? And people are starting to notice that Bob Quinn's drafts are not that good, especially in the second round. You're not getting impactful players, and you look at it and you go, okay, now the cutting of Anthony Zettel also raised a lot of eyebrows going, you know what? Sometimes you might just have to take a player and make him fit your system instead of cutting a guy that put pressure on the quarterback and had 6 sacks. I mean, that move right there is a little bit befuddling because I understand you have to have guys that fit systems and sometimes they're a bad fit. But sometimes when you look at a situation, you go, okay, this guy had 6 sacks. We got to find a way to utilize his strengths. And Matt Patricia supposedly is a genius. He should have found a way to utilize Anthony Zettel because you don't have any pressure. How are you going to make cuts based on system at this point in time when that's what you put on film? Yeah, it's easy to do that when you're the New England Patriots and you cut some superstar guys because you know that you have guys waiting in the wings to take over for that. But you're the Lions. You need all the help you can get right now.
Exactly. You're the Detroit Lions, and you got to keep talented individuals on the field. Man, Jason, it's just, it's, sitting here talking Detroit Lion football, it was really, when I was watching it from the press box at Comerica Park, I went and saw the Justin Verlander game. I wanted to see a good story, a decent story. And so when that first half developed, when Matthew Stafford threw that first interception, people were kind of like, uh-oh, this isn't looking good. And then you saw something that was also a little bit disappointing in that there were a lot of mental breakdowns. I mean, how do you give up a return for a touchdown? How do you, after halftime, again, which is really irritating, that's the time when you're supposed to be focused. How does Michael Roberts come and then you have the ball, the Lions offense has the ball to start the second half, and you jump. It's a false start. It was just one of those things where once the ball got rolling in the negative direction in that third quarter, it was just terrible. It just was one of those things where I never thought I would see a quarter like that because it's unheard of. You never really see a team jump off and get like 25, 31 straight points. You just don't see that.
Yeah, it was definitely – that was the epitome of the lowest point for the Lions. I'm not sure if you would say the entire game, but that one quarter, that was just brutal to watch.
It was brutal.
But really, it was like 3 minutes.
Yeah, and they scored like 21 points in like a span of like 3 minutes. It was something to behold. And I'll ask you this. What's the first area? Let's say it's Tuesday. The players are going to walk in. Obviously, Patricia's going to have to rip him a new asshole. He's got to be like, look, you embarrassed you embarrassed the city, you embarrassed the nation, the NFL by putting a performance on like that. Where do you go from here? Do you say, okay, look, let's hyper-focus on the running game? Let's say, look, we got to be more creative on the play calling? Do we go with a simpler scheme on defense? What would be the first step you would take to make this better?
I mean, first off, I would get all the offensive line together because, I mean, they're the first line of protection. They're what makes the run game go. They are the people who protect Matthew Stafford. And where it all starts, that's where it all starts. That's what you need to get them gelled. You need to get them ready to go. And you need to tell them this is on you. I mean, if you're not going to come to play, then you're going to be gone. It's ridiculous. And after that, I would then look at Jim Bob Cooter just himself, that you need to figure out play calling. You need to figure out what's working earlier and what's not working earlier, and go with what's working.
Go with what's working. Simple it down, man. You got to utilize Golden Tate. Marvin Jones has to catch the ball in prime time. Basically, if I'm Matt Patricia, I walk in there and I say, look, Marvin Jones, you got to step it up. Golden Tate, you got to make plays. Matthew Stafford, you got to be the guy that we know you are. And I think by simpling it down, and I think by making it a little bit easier, by everybody stepping up like 5%, I do think they can play a lot better versus San Fran, but I don't think it's going to be winning football. That's the problem, is that I think this year is going to be a year where the Lions take a step back, and it's going to be really tough because it seems like the Lions are not grasping any of the system that's being implemented, and especially for the offense to look, a little bit disruptive and not in sync is really concerning as well, because you got to do a lot better job being more creative, running the football, passing the football. And the part that I think, and I'll leave you with this, the Jets said it. We knew what was coming, and we were able to scheme for it, and we knew based on call-outs that it was going to be a wide receiver screen, it was going to be Theo Riddick over the middle, it was going to be something simple. They knew what was coming. You got to hide what you're doing a lot better, and you got to have that effort. I think once the train got rolling, you probably had those I-75 eyes going from everybody in that locker room, and everybody was just like, you know what, here we go again, and you got to find a leader has to emerge from this team. That's the biggest takeaway I need to see, is some leader has to emerge. And I thought it would be the likes of a Matthew Stafford, Golden Tate, but it might have to be somebody else. It might have to be a Nevin Lawson. It might have to be a Quandre Diggs. It might have to be somebody else. It might have to be Ziggy Ansah if he can find his way back on the field. It might have to be somebody else to take this team and take it to the next level. You know what, Jason? It might just have to be Kenny Galladay, because right now he's the best player on the team, and that's just the way it is.
I mean, whoever it is, they just need to figure it out quick.
They need to figure it out quick, Jason. All right, I'll let you go with that. Sorry to ruin your morning, but look, we got to break it down. It's therapy. It allows us to feel better to break down the Detroit Lions and at least talk about them, sir. And I'll save our rant about Michigan State for our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. You can follow Jason on Twitter as well at Jarvie the King. He's always a trooper, and he's definitely disappointed as I am based on what we saw this weekend for the Spartans and for the Detroit Lions. Jason, have a good week. We'll talk soon.
All right, later.
Yeah, everybody. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Very disappointing. When you, as a Lions fan, sit down, you expect the team to be professional. You expect the team to at least give you that effort. And did we get that? Absolutely not. In the second half of the podcast, right after this break, I'm going to talk about my reaction to what I saw. The wife even chimed in when she was watching because she had Matthew Stafford on her fantasy team, and she had texted me how embarrassing. So it's just one of those things where you're left sitting here scratching your head, but we'll talk about it in the second half of the podcast. Doc here for Podomatic.com, our host site. If you're looking to start a brand new podcast, all the hosts here on the network have recorded podcasts. We've recorded 1,000 podcasts since September of 2013, and we've only used one host site. Why? All the hosts can record their podcast, take the audio, and simply upload it to Podomatic.com so that all the great debates, when the Lions crap the bed on the field for the entire world to see, we can debate the next morning and have fun and record podcasts and share our thoughts with fans and supporters, not only in Detroit, but across the country and even overseas. So if you're looking to start a brand new podcast, you're looking to start a brand new project in Detroit sports or anything else, definitely check out Podomatic.com. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Motor City Sports Rant, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Thanks, everybody, for your continued support. Free and easy way to support us, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. So, like I told Jason, I had a chance to go down to Comerica Park and cover Justin Verlander's return to Comerica, playing the Tigers. He had a stellar performance, 10 Ks plus, earned his 15th win on the season. And you get excited. You know, it's like 6:30 and the Tigers game's going on, and you get excited. You just want to see Detroit Lion football because the preseason didn't give us anything. The preseason, everybody said, oh, don't take nothing away from it. It's the preseason. But, okay, the nitty-gritty regarding schemes, I can understand. Obviously, Matt Patricia did not scheme fully for the preseason opponents. Fine, but there were signs that everybody saw. Don't dismiss fans. People can see what they're, when they sit down and watch a football game, they can see what is happening, and they can see trends. And one of the trends that everybody saw was there's no pressure on the quarterback. You, as a lineman, want to be able to at least have some push. You want to at least have some pressure. Maybe you don't get there fully, you don't get all the sacks, and you don't get all the turnovers, but you do want to see a trend where when it's the offensive line versus the defensive line, you want to see some battles where the defensive line wins. You want to see some guys get into the backfield. You want to see some pressure. You want to be able to see, it's trending in the right direction. From what we saw in the preseason, everything was trending in the wrong direction. And so I was so angry when everybody dismissed what we saw in that preseason because, no, I did not do that. I said, no, something's wrong. That defensive line is going to be a weakness. Everybody talked about it, that they're going to struggle. And in the NFL, look what happened. When you give Sam Darnold, the youngest starting quarterback in the NFL, you give him time, look what he can do. That's the marquee. That's why everybody screamed for Khalil Mack. That's why everybody was screaming their head off. Go out there and step up, Bob Quinn. And that's all we can say is, Bob Quinn, when you evaluated this talent, you didn't think that adding a Khalil Mack would help this team? What the fuck? Everybody thought about it. Everybody said, why do you think people were clamoring for Khalil Mack? Because they saw the level of talent that you had. They saw the level of talent that they knew. Your guys would not pressure the quarterback. Sam Darnold looked like a guy that had all the time in the world to survey the landscape, pick apart your defense, and how is that possible? How did Sam Darnold put up those numbers? How? What the fuck? And so that's why everybody was so devastated by that performance. That's why everybody was so disappointed that Khalil Mack was not on this roster because we all sat back on Sunday. We all came out and were like, whoa. Khalil Mack almost destroyed the Green Bay Packers organization single-handedly. Forced turnovers, pressure, looking like a dominant figure there. You didn't need that? You felt like your draft picks, Bob Quinn, were going to help you? Why? There's no evidence of that. And that's why people saw the trade scenario based upon who the Lions took in the first round, and it was laughable. Jared Davis, Taylor Decker, those guys, that's not the level of a Khalil Mack at all. Those guys are not equivalent to the likes of a Khalil Mack. So always give me a player that's productive. You didn't want to pay him $24 million a year, but you have Ziggy Ansah who can't make the field. Adam Strozinski at Adam RSTROZ on Twitter. Great host here on the network. He said, I'm terrified. I don't think that Ziggy Ansah can play a whole season. Why is Bob Quinn dedicating the franchise tag to Ziggy Ansah? Why? And it turned out he's right. First game, boom, shoulder surgery. Boom, first game, shoulder concern. Similar to what we saw in the past. Absolutely complete organizational collapse, and that's what we've seen. And it's definitely embarrassing. It made everybody scratch their head. And as the game progressed, it's shocking and demoralizing, and I can feel my passion kind of waning, talking about this. But it's demoralizing that when, things go south for the Lions, that they go that south. And that Detroit Lion team can put that on tape is frustrating. It's not the proper mindset. It's not the mindset that's representative of the people of the fine city of Detroit. We expect hard work. We expect professionalism. We expect execution. Now, you're going to make mistakes. There are going to be times when, not everything goes exactly right. But the complete lack of effort, the complete, unwillingness to go all out, for a single game that everybody thought you should win is really demoralizing on a lot of levels. It's really something that, as we sit here talking about the Detroit Lions, it's frustrating, and we go forward. And, I put out an article, and if everybody saw it on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, after the preseason. Now, some people will sit back and react to things, and they'll say, okay, the Detroit Lions can go 7-9, and the Detroit Lions can do this. Or some people say, well, if things go right, it could be 8-8 or 9-7. I said this before the season. You know what? This is a team, when you look at the roster, it's not that good. This is a team that was put together in a wrong way. It's flawed in a lot of areas. And I said, you know what? Looking back, let me go look and see what Bill Belichick did. What did he do his first year with the New England Patriots? He went 5-11, and the New England Patriots earned the 6th pick as a result of that season. And I said, you know what? Based on what I see, everybody in describing that game and describing the team just says it's not that good. I said, you know what? I kind of agree. I think this team probably is a 6-7 win team. What's the value of a 6-10 year this year? I said in my article, if you check it out at DetroitSportsPodcast.com, and it said the Detroit Lions should tank in 2018. And I said that before game one. And so the reason why I said that was I looked and I surveyed the landscape of the talent. It's not good enough. It's not good enough on a lot of levels. And I said, I think that the value of this year is not going to be what's on the tape and the development of these players. I think that the majority of these players should be let go. Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, fine, they're productive, but they're not Super Bowl caliber. You know that. Everybody knows that. Kerryon Johnson, fine. Theo Riddick, fine. Third down back. LeGarrette Blount probably won't be here when the team starts to win, if they ever start to win. And so I think that the value of the 2018 season, game to game, probably, the Lions aren't going to look that bad as they did on Monday, but I think the value this year is in losing, is in getting that draft pick, and hopefully the evolution of Bob Quinn evaluating talent for the team, and hopefully evaluating the talent a lot better across the NFL landscape. It just has to be. It's a situation in which if you don't draft better, if you go out there and you have classes where they're not productive across the board, we're going to be looking at a lot more performances like this. This is going to be a bumpy ride, everybody. I'm telling you, it's time. It's time to panic. It's definitely time to panic in Detroit. And it's unfortunate that this is where we're at because of the fact that the Detroit Lions were a 9-7 team, and Bob Quinn told everybody that he brought in Matt Patricia to take this to the next level faster. You know what? Maybe he was just giving the fans lip service and he really believes it's a rebuild. But when I look at it, I say, yikes. I say this is going to be hurtful. And it's going to be painful along the way. Thanks, everybody, for listening. You've listened to the Motor City Sports Rant. Stay tuned this week as we break down much further the Detroit Lions debacle across all the shows. Definitely support all the shows on the network by visiting DetroitSportsPodcast.com. I look forward to talking to everybody later on this week. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.